Welcome to the International Conference Rajab 1443 Hijriah, 1st of November 2021. First of all, let's praises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious, the most merciful, the creator and sustainer of the universe. Peace be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the last messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has guided human life from the distractions into the right way of Islam. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to listen to the welcoming remarks from the President of the Board of Trustees Turkey, Dr. Said Yüce.
Öyle mi? Hasbi Bey de şeyden hatta mı? Hasbi Bey hatta mı? Normal sesi açsanız. Şöyle bilgisayarına gelen sesi yeter. Sonra duyalım ama konuşurken.
Evet, şu an abi bir ses tabii.
Evet, sesimiz geliyor mu? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sesimiz geliyor herhalde. Hasbi Bey duyuyor mu bizi?
Sesiniz geliyor.
Tamam.
Sait Bey sesiniz gelmiyor bize.
Sesimiz geliyor mu? Evet, Hasbi Bey, sesim geliyor mu şu anda?
Şu an geliyor.
Evet. Selamünaleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuhu. Çok kıymetli misafirlerimiz, Gontor Üniversitesi Rektörümüz, değerli katılımcılar, hepinize İstanbul'dan selam ediyor, hoş geldiniz diyorum.
Ya, beliau sampaikan para tamu yang berhormat, terutama Rektor UNIDA, para hadirin sekalian, selamat datang di acara ini. Kami sampaikan salam dari Istanbul. Gelmek.
Geldi. Açtım. Şu anda sesim geliyor mu Hasbi Bey?
Sesiniz geliyor.
Tamam. Ben biraz önceki konuşmamı duyamamış olabilirsiniz. Tekrar Gontor Üniversitesi'nin tertiplemiş olduğu vakfımızla birlikte bu programda özellikle 19. yüzyıldan itibaren dünyayı etkisi altına almış olan bu materyalizm ve naturalizm, Darwinizm gibi akımların maalesef eğitim sistemlerini de olumsuz etkilediğini ve yetişen nesillerin tamamen Allah inancından ve kutsallıktan uzak, tabiat, tesadüf ve kendiliğinden olduğu şeklindeki bu görüşler maalesef yaygın bir şekilde dünyada okutulmakta ve geçerli kılınmaya çalışılmaktadır. Özellikle insanın fıtratına ve yaratılışına aykırı olan bu akımlar sonuçta kainatın yaratıcısı bir sahibi olmadığını, dolayısıyla benim de bir sahibim yok şeklinde bir sonucu doğurduğunu ve bunun da maalesef sadece insan aklını tatmin etmekten, onu da kısmen tatmin etmekten öte kalbine, ruhuna bir tesir edemediği için her türlü maddi manevi sıkıntıları beraberinde getirmektedir. Hasbi hocam. Şunu kapatsanız, şu sesi. Buradaki bu sesi kapatın.
Açıyorum da bunun sesi gelsin diye açıyorum da bu sefer de onun mikrofonu kapandı.
Bu sefer evet. Hasbi'nin mikrofonu kapatmışlar oradan.
Evet, sesim geliyor mu? Sesim geliyor mu? Sesim geliyor mu?
Bana geliyor da. Evet.
Tamam. Beliau tadi sampaikan bahwa sejak abad ke-19 berbagai aliran sekuler seperti naturalisme, terus materialisme berkembang dan itu sangat berpengaruh dalam pemikiran manusia. Dan sejak itu pula sistem pendidikan yang ada berkembang sesuai dengan pemikiran sesuai dengan positivisme yang berasal dari materialisme tadi, dan itu memberikan pemikiran kepada manusia, khususnya kepada generasi muda, bahwa segala sesuatu yang terjadi di alam ini tanpa ada Tuhan. Jadi manusia dengan keadaan seperti itu, pemikiran seperti itu, manusia berpikir bahwa alam ini tidak ada penciptanya, tidak ada yang urus, berarti saya bebas, merdeka, tidak ada yang mengurus atau mengendalikan saya. Tamam.
Evet. Aslında ilimler tevhidi düşüncenin
ışığında verilmelidir. Nobel ödüllü Pakistanlı Profesör Muhammed Abdüsselam'ın dediği gibi bütün ilimler, fenler Allah'ın eserlerini araştırma gayretinden ibarettir. Burada aslında bizlere çok büyük vazifeler düşüyor. Çünkü bilim diye bugün dayatılan aslında bir ideolojiden öteye gitmeyen şey, hiçbir esası olmayan bu naturalizm ve materyalizmi bir din gibi adeta bize dayatanlar, bilim böyle diyor deyip hakikatleri gizlemektedirler. Aslında bilimin yaptığı sadece kainatta yaratılmış olan ve var olan kanunları keşfetmekten ibarettir. Yoksa yeni bir şey yapabilme kudretine, kuvvetine sahip değildir. Bu yüzden bu çok temel ve esas görüş şu bizim tekrar tadil etmemiz, düzeltmemiz gerekmektedir eğitim sistemlerinde.
Beliau katakan semua ilmu sebetulnya bermuara pada tauhid, ya. Dan beliau menyampaikan pendapatnya Abdussalam yang mendapatkan penghargaan Nobel, bahwa semua ilmu yang ada sebenarnya mencari jejak Allah di alam semesta ini. Ya, kita juga seharusnya semua ilmu yang kita pelajari juga mengantarkan kita kepada tauhid, dan ada juga ajarkan tauhid, dan apa yang dipelajari di sekolah itu seharusnya mengantarkan kepada tauhid, dan sistem pendidikan harus disesuaikan dengan konsep seperti ini. Buyurun.
Aslında Bediüzzaman Hazretleri Lemalar isimli eserinde Tabiat Risalesi'nde bu meseleyi çok güzel bir örnekle ortaya koymakta ve bütün bu materyalistlerin iddialarını, ideolojilerini çürütmektedir. Aslında o çok zaman almasın diye ben onun Türkçesini okumayacağım. Hasbi Hocam, siz Endonezyacısından o bölümü okuyabilirsiniz. Eczahane örneğini.
Tamam. Terkait dengan ini, Imam Bediüzzaman Said Nursi menyampaikan dalam bukunya atau kitabnya Al-Lama'at di bab Risalah Tabi'ah dengan sebuah perumpamaan yang sangat baik. Kata beliau, saya tidak akan baca yang bahasa Turkinya, tapi saya disuruh baca yang bahasa Indonesianya sebagai berikut. Sebentar saya buka filenya.
Sesi mi gitti?
Ustaz Said Nursi memberikan sebuah contoh. Suara saya kedengaran?
Yes.
Oke.
Evet.
Sebuah perumpamaannya sebagai berikut. Sebuah apotek memiliki ratusan wadah dan botol berisi berbagai bahan kimia. Karena sebab tertentu, kita membutuhkan salep dan obat antibiotik. Ketika masuk ke apotek tersebut, kita menemukan banyak sekali salep dan antibiotik tersebut. Setelah dianalisa, salep itu tersusun dari bahan-bahan berbeda sesuai dengan komposisi yang telah ditentukan. Ia terambil dari 1 gram bahan ini, kemudian 3 gram bahan itu, 10 gram bahan yang lain, dan seterusnya. Masing-masing diambil dengan ukuran yang berbeda-beda. Jika masing-masing ukurannya kurang atau kelebihan, maka khasiat dari salep tersebut akan hilang. Sekarang kita berpindah ke obat antibiotik. Kita teliti obat tersebut lewat pengamatan kimiawi. Ternyata ia tersusun dengan komposisi tertentu yang diambil dari botol-botol kimia tadi sesuai dengan takarannya. Khasiatnya tentu akan hilang jika kita salah dalam mengukur sehingga bahan-bahannya sedikit berlebih atau berkurang. Dari uraian di atas, kita dapat menyimpulkan bahwa bahan yang beraneka macam itu didatangkan dengan takaran yang berbeda-beda sesuai dengan ukurannya. Jika demikian, mungkinkah racikan kimia yang unsur-unsurnya tersusun dengan sangat akurat itu terbentuk secara kebetulan? Atau mungkinkah ia terbentuk karena adanya perbenturan antara botol-botol yang ada akibat gempa dahsyat yang terjadi di apotek tersebut, sehingga masing-masing bahan kimia tadi mengalir dengan ukuran tertentu dan saling menyatu, lalu membentuk racikan berkhasiat? Adakah yang lebih mustahil dan lebih tidak logis dari hal itu? Adakah khurafat yang lebih hebat darinya? Serta adakah kebatilan yang lebih batil dari itu semua? Bahkan keledai yang sangat bodoh pun seandainya bisa berbicara, akan berkata betapa dungunya orang yang mengatakan hal semacam ini. Atas dasar itulah, kita bisa mengatakan bahwa setiap makhluk hidup merupakan komposisi dan racikan yang hidup. Setiap tumbuhan serupa dengan obat antibiotik, sebab ia tersusun dari unsur-unsur yang berbeda dan dari bahan-bahan yang beraneka macam, sesuai dengan ukurannya sangat akurat. Tentu saja, menyadarkan penciptaan makhluk yang sangat indah itu kepada sebab-sebab dan unsur materi, serta bahwa ia terwujud oleh sebab adalah batil, mustahil dan sangat tidak logis. Ia sama tidak logisnya dengan racikan obat yang terbentuk sendiri lewat mengalirnya bahan-bahan kimia dari botol tadi. Kesimpulannya, bahan-bahan yang terambil dari timbangan qadar dan qadar yang dimiliki Allah yang maha bijaksana dan maha mengetahui, yang terdapat di alam, yang merupakan apotek besar dan mengagumkan ini, hanya bisa terwujud lewat kebijaksanaan dan pengetahuan yang tak terkira, serta lewat kehendaknya yang mencakup segala sesuatu. Karena itu, betapa malangnya orang yang menyangka bahwa semua entitas ini merupakan produk alam, padahal alam merupakan benda yang bergerak secara buta dan tuli, atau ia termasuk sesuatu yang bersifat alamiah, atau ia terwujud akibat kreasi sebab-sebab materi. Tentu saja, mereka yang mempunyai anggapan semacam itu merupakan orang yang paling malang, paling bodoh, dan lebih tidak waras ketimbang orang gila yang berpikir bahwa racikan obat mujarab tersebut terbentuk dengan sendirinya akibat botol-botol yang beradu yang kemudian mengalihkan isinya. Ya, kekufuran tersebut merupakan igauan orang bodoh dan ocehan orang gila. Tamam Said Bey.
Evet, sesimi açarlarsa. Yok.
Buradan gidiyor sesin.
Gidiyor mu? Evet, ikinci konu da kadın konusuydu. Yani Gontor Üniversitemizle beraber belirlediğimiz konu. Bu meselede şunu söyleyebiliriz. Batı kaynaklı bir tabir maalesef dilimize ve bütün insanlığa yerleştirmeye çalışılıyor. Toplumsal cinsiyet tabiri. Tamamen Batı'nın icat ettiği eşcinsellik ve LGBT diye bilinen sapıklıkları meşru göstermek isteyen bir akımdır. Aslında Kur'an-ı Kerim kadına ve erkeğe rol biçmiştir. Yani Ricalu kavvamun alen nisa diye ifade edilen erkekleri kadınlar üzerine kavvam. Buradaki kavvam tabiri yani koruyan, muhafaza eden, ihtiyaçlarını gören anlamında kullanılmaktadır. Kadına ise evin içindeki düzeni sağlayan, çocukları yetiştiren, annelik gibi önemli bir görevi, vazifeyi veren bir kavramdır. Şimdi bu insanın yaratılışına, kadın ve erkeğin fıtratına uygun olmayan şeyleri maalesef dünyaya, gençliğe, aileleri zehirleyecek şekilde pompalayan Batı düşüncesi bu fıtrattan uzaklaştırdığı için büyük ölçüde geçimsizliklere, şiddete, hatta boşanmalara kadar giden çok büyük sıkıntıları netice vermektedir. Burada da Bediüzzaman Hazretleri çok muazzam bir formül geliştirmiş. Refika-i hayatını rahmet-i ilahiyenin munis, latif bir hediyesi olarak sev diyor. Yani eşlerini Allah'ın bir hediyesi. Herkes eşini, kocasını, karısını, kocası, bu bana Allah'ın latif, munis bir hediyesi diye baksa ve böyle telakki etse, onun dış görünüşüne değil de ahlak ve iç güzelliğine dikkat etse, aile problemleri tamamen ortadan kalkacak ve huzurlu ve barış içinde yaşayan bir topluluk olacak. Sonuç olarak dünya ve ahiret mutluluğunun kaynağı imanda ve fıtrata uygun yaşamaktadır. Teşekkür ediyorum. Selam ve muhabbetlerimi sunuyorum.
Beliau katakan persoalan kedua adalah yang disepakati dengan Gontor kemarin adalah persoalan gender. Persoalan gender ini yang selalu dikedepankan oleh Barat dan itu salah satu isu yang selalu mereka angkat untuk dunia Islam dan itu konsep yang mereka sampaikan itu tidak sesuai dengan fitrah manusia. Sementara kita melihat Al-Quran memberikan peran masing-masing kepada wanita dan pria. Salah satunya adalah ayat yang tadi dibaca, Ar-rijalu qawwamun 'alan nisa. Qawwam di sini dalam arti pelindung ya, laki-laki memenuhi kebutuhan wanita dan sebagainya. Sementara tugas atau peran wanita adalah dalam rumah membesarkan anak dan sebagainya. Jadi laki-laki dan perempuan itu saling melengkapi sebetulnya, saling melengkapi. Itulah menurut beliau konsep Al-Quran. Sementara Imam Bediüzzaman Said Nursi mengatakan dalam bukunya kalimat bahwa seorang pasangan, baik itu suami atau istri, melihat atau memandang pasangannya sebagai hadiah dari Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Jadi jangan hanya melihat kecantikan fisik seorang wanita atau ketampanan seorang pria, tapi lihatlah pada ahlaknya, ya, kecantikan internalnya, ya, ahlaknya gitu. Jadi kesimpulannya kebahagiaan dunia dan akhirat terletak pada iman dan hidup sesuai dengan fitrah. Itu yang bisa saya sampaikan. Saya sampaikan salam saya dari Istanbul. Terima kasih.
O zaman program bitmeden MO'yu da imzalayalım. Tamam.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to listen to the next welcoming remarks from the rector of University of Darussalam Gontor, Al-Ustadh Professor Dr. Kiai Haji Hamid Fahmi Zarkashi, MA.Ed. MPhil.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahilladzi hadana lihadza wa ma kunna linahtadiya laula an hadana Allah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu amma ba'du. First, I would like to thank you to Dr. Said Nur Yuce, the director of Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, for having this international seminar on Nursi. And this is, of course, the implementation of our collaboration that we have signed last 2 years back. And of course, the study of Nursi is very important in our days because there are so many issues and subjects that we need to the answer from the work of Nursi, who is contemporary scholars who has many concern about the humanity and culture, also on Islamic studies. In this regard, University of Darussalam is one of the university which is concerned on the study of Nursi. We have also seminar last year about Nursi, and we already gather about 40 article on seminar and symposium, and we have also published 11 article on journal, both in English and Arabic. So today we would like to present the result of these studies in one collected article to the Nursi, to the Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. And me, myself, last 3 years, I have also written the article on knowledge and knowing, the studies according to Nursi and Muhammad Nakib Al-Lattas, and published in a journal in Malaysia. In our university, the students learn Arabic very well, so we read the Rasail Nursi in our daily studies. But we used to do this kind of studies last 3 or 4 years back. In this center, we send about 10 or 8 students coming here and study for 10 days and learn this kind of Rasail from these sources that you have here. And after that, they wrote article on Nursi. Even some of our students write the thesis on Nursi. And of course, because they learn Arabic very well, and it is very useful in our university when we are talking about the idea of integrating between science and religion. Today we propose the seminar on Nursi and contemporary issues. The issue actually we have in Indonesia and actually all over the world is about gender and equality, feminism, and so that some Muslim secular people imported from the West. So this is the challenge nowadays in our country, in Indonesia. It might be also in Turkey, that many women try to challenge our jurisprudence or fiqh on the idea of equality between men and women. But the answer already we found in this Rasail, and one of our students now writing this Nursi on justice between men and women. It's very interesting, and today will be presented here. And today also present among us is Dr. Henry Solahuddin. He is our lecturer. He is expert on contouring the idea of feminism and gender equality. He will also present. And the last one is very important issue that written by our student in PhD in University of Darussalam on the idea of Nursi on sustainable development and relating to Nursi on environment, and he compared between the idea of Nursi with the person who is expert on this environment. His name, I think, Fritjof Capra. He's very important person in this kind of environment studies. But he, placed the properly where Capra stand for and Nursi where he stand for. And of course, very Islamic when we refer to Nursi. I really agree what has been stated by Dr. Syed Lucu about the importance of Tawheed, the unity of God in relation to science. And we also have implemented in our university that theology in Islam is the mother of knowledge. I mean, we start from theology to develop science. We start Tawheed to develop science. And of course, this issue in Islamic studies as well as in Western discourse in relation between religion and science is now very recently discussed also among the philosophers in the West, like Barbour and Hout and other scholars who try to integrate between religion and science. But we don't have any problem actually about the relation between religion and science, because Islam is the religion that appreciate the use of reason and also appreciate scientific discoveries, scientific exploration, and so on and so on. So two speakers from Indonesia will deliver online, and one speaker from here, Dr. Henry Solahuddin, will deliver offline here. Again, I would like to thank you very much to Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, especially to Dr. Yuce. We have met also in INSIS Jakarta with Professor Apar Salam last 2 years, and we sent MOU there. And of course, we hope that you visit Indonesia again and again.
Inshallah.
And we would like to have some kind of, relation, not only in written, but you visit us and we visit you. This is kind of brotherhood. And I would like to let you know that our university is boarding university system, where the students live inside the campus. And we, myself, as director, also live with the student in the campus for 24 hours. So anytime you come there, you are most welcome. We meet with the teachers there, and we also meet with the student, and we can freely share the idea of this kind of important discourse on Islamic studies, especially on the Nursi studies. This is what I can say. Today we would like to sign the memorandum of understanding and a memorandum of action to implement the future of our relationship. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yes. Yeah.
For Istanbul Foundation. Would you explain?
Okay.
That's it.
This one? Yes.
Thank you. I don't sign it.
Sir, can I have one photo session where both of you are sitting and finding one sitting both of you?
Oh,
Oturalım.
Okay, so both of you are sitting. Okay, just 2 person I think. I will take the center. Sorry, I'm going to take center in here. Yes, okay. Yeah, and just act like you are.
Tamam, okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, now look at the camera. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Let me do it again. 1, 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mübarek inşallah.
Tamam. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we want your photo. Okay. And maybe
Ha, bunu hocama verelim. This one for your gift.
photo.
Tamam.
Thank you
Tamam.
so much.
Şu an yayındayız değil mi? Sesim
Şey, devam ediyor mu? Programın
ediyor.
ikincisi.
Devam
Ha.
ediyor. Şu an yayın
Kamera satu.
devam ediyor.
So maybe you can join. Are you going to join? So there will be. Okay. So I'm at 2% in the right session last time. So
Let's
join us. So it will be like 3%.
yeah.
Yeah. Or I think better. What's the Saturday? Yeah.
Sait abi sen de gel. Gel gel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, okay.
Hı hı.
One and this is beautiful group photo. Nice. 1, 2, 3.
Thank
Şu
you.
benim makinemle de bir çeksenize.
En başa çekebilir misin?
Al.
Al.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Indonesian coffee.
Okay. White coffee.
Arabica chop.
Arabica.
Oh yeah, very special. You can try. This is a Nursi corner in our university.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Nursi Corner'da.
Bununla fotoğrafını çekebilir miyiz ya?
Al. Şey. Emir. Sait Nursi Corner. Ha.
Bayraklardan
Gözüküyor, gözüküyor.
Okay, Lahir. His name is Sanasa.
Yeah.
This
This is the article on Nursi.
Ha, maşallah.
Nursi studies at University of Dar es Salaam.
Oo, maşallah. Sen de dursun, hepsini çek.
Haydi bismillah.
Lahir. His name is Sanasa. His name is Sanasa. Or his name is Sanasa.
Thank you.
Ha.
This is in Arabic.
Okay. Ha.
Bahasa.
Üniversite Dar es Salaam Gontor. Maşallah. Bizim Katre dergisine de makale isteyelim Gontor Üniversitesi hocalarından. Hakem ve akademik dergimiz.
Also, we wish have articles from you, from the
Okay,
from the professors of your university.
right. Yeah, you can give us the address.
Okay.
Of the journal.
Of course.
So, Alhamdulillah. Yeah.
Şunları da al. Şeyleri çıkart.
Yayına
The respected audiences, the next agenda is delivering the presentations from the invited speakers. They will be led by the moderator, Al-Ustad Dr. Candidate Hassan Khalawi, MPD.
Thanks for the given time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome all of you with the Islamic reading. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace, say for Science and Culture, President of the Board of Trustee Turkey, the Honorable Professor Dr. Hamid Fahmi Jarkashi, MED and Phil, Director of the University of Darussalam Gontor, Indonesia, Honorable all components of Darussalam University Gontor, Indonesia, and the most welcome scholars, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Before entering to the main session of this agenda, let me provide the mapping of the session. The first one is the presentation. The first presentation will be 35 minutes for each presenter. 35 minutes for each presenter. And then I am sorry that there is Q&A session. There is no question and answer session for this agenda because of the restricted time. Ladies and gentlemen, it is such a pleasure of mine again conference on Risale Nur and contemporary issues 2021. Now we are turning to the first presentation. Please welcome Dr. Henry Solahuddin, a lecturer of Darussalam University Gontor, Indonesia, with a study entitled Gender, Equality, Discourse in Islamic Thought, Indonesia. 35 minutes is yours. Ustad Henry Solahuddin, can you monitor my voice? Ustad, 35 minutes is yours for your presentation this evening.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me and allow me to present my article. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahilladzi ja'alal Qur'ana hudal lil muttaqin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahu bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin, amma ba'du. Okay, I share my screen. Is okay. This gender equality discourse in Islamic thought in Indonesia, a case study on Islamic studies based on feminist perspective in State Islamic University of Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta. Sorry. For my introduction about this study, the first is the idea of gender equality as an academic discourse began to emerge in Indonesian Islamic universities since the 1990s, especially at State Islamic University or UIN of Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta. Gender equality discourse is believed to be an analytical tool that is able to answer the issue of gender inequality and the inequality of social roles between men and women in society. In its development, this discourse claimed that the text of Tanzil or Wahy, Quran and Hadith and Ijtihad of ulama are the most important element in perpetuating patriarchal culture and causing great controversy. The feminists claim that the interpretation or tafsir and ijtihad of classical ulama as source of violence against women, and it encourages them to deconstruct and reinterpret Islamic laws. The strengthening of the hegemony of the perspective of gender equality as the mainstream approach to Islamic studies at various state Islamic universities, especially at UIN Sunan Kalijaga. So we also, now that the weakening of the confidence of some Indonesian Muslim scholar in the intellectual tradition of Islamic or Turath, intellectual tradition of Islam, especially in interacting with the result of Western studies on Islam and gender. Application of Western thought and methodology into the curriculum of Islamic studies without any criticism and is believed to be scientific axiom or al-musallamat al-ilmiyah that are impartial and free from error. The study of gender equality discourse in Islamic thought at the university level is new challenge to the integration of Islamic thought or Wahdatul Fikri al-Islami. Islamic studies based on gender is form of liberalization of Islamic thought. So we going how the emergence of gender discourse in Indonesian state Islamic universities. There are some points that I would like to present. Yeah. This is the supporting element for the spread of gender mainstreaming. The post-reform, the first is the post-reform era of freedom of speech, 1998. And this element result various ideologies are given equal opportunities as long as they do not commit crimes empirically. So the second is political and legislative support. There are many points, state policy guideline or GBHN in 1999, gender mainstreaming. So law of Republic of Indonesia number 39 year 1999 on human rights, article 38 on justice and gender equality. So presidential instruction number 9 year 2000 on gender mainstreaming that result the establishing of gender-based Islamic education curriculum and study program, financial support from foreign institution. So there are financial assistance. Sorry, there are financial assistance for NGO that promote liberalism, human rights, and gender equality. So the development of feminism in Indonesia, many points. Shortly, the emergence of feminism of feminist NGOs, for example, Fahmina, Rahima, YGP, etc. Propaganda of lesbianism, the right of everyone, and seen as normal sexual orientation, deconstruction of the interpretation of revelation or wahyu in women's perspective to support the idea of gender equality, campaign for sexual freedom, rejecting the anti-pornography and porno action bill, the wife's right to refuse her husband's sexual invitation, and the right to have an abortion, encourage the publication of book, seminar, workshop that support gender ideology. The representation of women in parliament, political parties, and NGOs is 30%. So, Saparina Sadli, among feminists in Indonesia, said that Indonesian feminism does not produce a distinctively Indonesian feminist theory, but only a repetition of global feminist issue. The emergence of gender discourse in Indonesian state Islamic universities. Munawar Sajali, as Minister of Religion at that time, questioned the hijab and women heritage in his speech in 1987 at EIN, or State Islamic University Jakarta, during bachelor graduation ceremony. Rector of EIN Jakarta 1973 up to 1984 deconstruct the approach of Islamic studies into liberal approach, including gender-based interpretation. Starting to appear theses on gender issues, namely Zaituna Subhan thesis on deconstruction of meaning of qawama. She is protesting against male leadership in the household. There is some poster denote the protester. So there is in press a presidential instruction number 9 2000 on gender mainstreaming as the legal basis for establishing the Center for Women's Studies and developing gender-based Islamic studies curriculum. To avoid claim that gender originate from the Christian West, which promote culture of free sex, abortion, and anti-family, the term feminist theology is not used, but is replaced with women's perspective in religion or gender analysis and focus on the issue of violence against women.
Tehui claims
So how they implement strategy gender approach in Islamic studies at UIN Sunan Kalijaga. In administrative system, increase the quantity of women as lecturer, officer, staff, establishment of women studies, etc., etc. Cooperation with external institutions in improving human resources, Islamic studies with gender-based approach, research method that they use the feminist methodology in Islamic studies. The establishment of Women Study Center. The principal decree of 3 ministers in 1995 objective promote gender mainstreaming in Indonesia and answer women's problem in religion and society. The function is gender-based academic development. So all Islamic universities are required to support progressive and moderate Islamic mainstreaming. Cooperation with institutions from abroad. For example, McGill, SIDA, ICHEHAB, Ford Foundation, Danida, the Asia Foundation, LAPIS, OSAID, etc. The objective is such as to formulate gender-based Islamic studies curriculum through workshop, seminar, publication, summer course, etc. In 2001, Ford Foundation sponsor UIN Sunan Kalijaga 150,000 to hold seminar on Islam, gender, and reproductive health. In 2004, Ford Foundation sponsored 47,000 USD for curriculum development project calling for men's involvement in reproductive health. The strategy of gender inclusive learning at UIN Sunan Kalijaga using women-friendly course material. In example, refer to the opinion of women scholar in balance and in line with gender interests. Integrating the topic of gender equality into course material, the objective of feminist research to defend the value of women's subjectivity and personal experience, especially regarding the oppression of women. Gender-biased curriculum, the emergence of the role of women in the curriculum of course is less than that of men in quantity. The formation of gender-based curriculum is done with the concept of affirmative action. This is the example of gender-based in Ulumul Quran curriculum. The target is the evolution of Sharia. That Sharia, there is no thawabit, but always change according to the time, according to the place. Also, the example of gender-based curriculum, Arabic language, and fiqh, that this is denote that Arabic language, the conclusion of Arabic language is gender bias in grammar, in grammar and in vocabulary. So masail fiqhiyah, the issues of fiqh, that producing the law has to subject to gender approach or gender sensitive approach. So analysis critic of gender-based curriculum. I have some critique. First, there is a coercive relation between the substance of the course and gender perspective. In example, Arabic, fiqh, ulumul Quran, etc. Problem in the curriculum that divining and gender issue as universal problem and making it a compulsory course. The internationalization of the women's studies curriculum uses Western perspective and makes it the standard in looking at the problem and its solution. Feminist method in Islamic studies. According to feminists, the emergence of feminist methodology is because of the existence of authoritarian methodologies that cause gender discrimination in Islamic studies and silence the finding of women. The objectives are obtain original research and free themselves from the checklist of sexist methodology. Second, discuss research topics that are not normally discussed in academic writing, in example, experiences of women oppression and women personal cases. I would like to jump to the conclusion. The conclusion, first, number one, the discourse on gender equality in Islamic thought as being referred at Win Sunan Kalijaga contradicts the Islamic intellectual tradition, both in terms of method and ideas. Number two, differences in how we interpret basic concept in Islam, such as equality, justice, thawabit, mutaghayyirat, and qat'iyat or dhuniyat, play a role in creating fundamental differences in gender perspective. What Islam refer concept of taklif for men, for example, can be seen by feminists as male domination, and what is rukhsah for women is considered as subordination or discrimination toward women. The history of Western feminism, which initially want to fight for women's rights, eventually gave rise to various sects, classes, and conflict among feminism, among feminists. The gender equality discourse at Win Sunan Kalijaga actually aim to rebuild understanding of the nas on the text, which is accused of being the cause of violence against women. Islamic studies at UIN Sunan Kalijaga are carried out through the establishment of the Women Study Center, publishing book journal, developing women-friendly curricula, and encouraging collaboration with feminist institutions from within and outside the country. Feminist method practice in Islamic studies tend to have much in common with the method used by Western feminists to deconstruct biblical texts. Discourse on gender equality at UIN Sunan Kalijaga tend to believe in understanding gender equality as the answer to women's problem. Criticism of the tradition of fiqh stem from the gender of ulama, men, who are accused to carry gender ideology to oppress women, and from a cultural background of patriarchy. The feminist approach, which is based on subjective experience of women's oppression, contrasts with the concept of Islamic teaching, which are revelation-based and enduring in all places and time. The foundation of the discourse on gender equality in Islamic studies is the deconstruction of texts, Al-Quran and Hadith, which prioritize contextual approaches and historical criticism rather than adhering the general method of umumul lafaz. Sharia laws, especially those that are qat'i and thabit, are not built on the basis of culture and social reality. So they cannot always change according to the context of human life, as well as partial and temporal cases. The method of determining the law of istimbatul ahkam and the methodology of interpretation in Islamic intellectual tradition are not gender-based. That what I can present in this time, and thank you very much for allowing me and giving me the time to present this topic. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Henry, had you
Yes,
finished
Mr.
your?
Hassan. Thank you very much.
Had you finished? Thank you for your presentation, Dr. Henry, for the enlightening and triggering materials for us. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we are turning to the second presenter of this important agenda, namely Ustadzah Neti Yuanda, with the study entitled The Concept of Justice According to Bediüzzaman Said Nursi as a Response to the Gender Equality. Please welcome Ustadzah Neti Yuanda. 35 minutes is yours.
Your Excellency, Dr. Said Yuce from Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, Honorable, my beloved Rector, Professor Dr. Hamid Fahmi Zarkashi, MAME Amphil, respected lecturers of the University of Darussalam Gontor, the distinguished guests in Turkey, and my friends at the University of Darussalam Gontor. Alhamdulillah bari'un nasab wa khaliqul lawhi wal qalam. Ahmaduhu ta'ala ala ma allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam wa ashkuruhu ala ma asja wa an'am. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الهادي إلى سبيل الأقوام صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم هو الذي قد أرشدنا بمشيئة الله من الجهل إلى الذكاء ومن ظلم الكفر إلى نور الإسلام. أحييكم تحية إسلامية خير تحية في العالمين وتحية الإسلام هي السلام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My name is Neti Yuanda. I'm a postgraduate student at the University of Darussalam Gontor. I would like to thank my rector and Istanbul Foundation for giving me a valuable experience today, and it's honor and valuable opportunity for me to stand in this place to present my research on the concept of justice according to Badi'uzzaman Said Nursi as response to the gender equality. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Okay, one of the issues that can never separated from feminism is about justice, or more familiarly known as gender equality. Actually, what is the factor that triggered the emergence of gender equality? Okay. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Buka. Thank you. Okay, what is the factor that triggered the emergence of gender equality? The answer is the patriarchism. The patriarchism is the main pillar of feminism. For them, feminism exists because of patriotism. The struggle for promoting gender equality is no longer needed if patriotism is no longer exists. Therefore, they want to eliminate it through the understanding of gender equality. Patriarchism as a cause of gender equality is considered to be impartial to women. Then the question is, can gender equality be a solution to achieve the justice? Let's take a look at the opinion of Western scholar. Okay. According to Rosemary Tong, in her book Feminist Thought, gender equality will create justice so that no one is harmed systemically. But is that true? Okay, let's talk about the disagreement of Western scholar on gender equality. Marquis de Vauvenarges He said that nature knows no equality. The applicable law is subordination and dependence. This also applies to human. For that, it can be concluded that the equation is a mirage utopia. The second comes from James Anthony Fuller. He said that men are marked by natural unequal. It is vain, therefore, to treat them as if they were equal. The third comes from Marlene Legat in her book In Their Time, A History of Feminism in Western Society. He states that one of the main mistakes of feminism is to assume that all women have the same character, interests, and personality. Feminists often forget the diversity of ethnicities, religion, and social classes. In addition, they also look inconsistency in racism. Even a French feminist, name is Judith Plasco, at the Religion, Gender and Society conference, questioned what exactly feminists want in relation to gender roles and justice. Okay, some Western scholars seem to give important note to the gender equality. If it is understood, in fact, the main problem is justice and an understanding of the nature of women. So we need to rediscuss the meaning of justice, especially in the Islamic perspective. So how does Islam view it? Okay, in this occasion, we will discuss about the three things. The first is the concept of justice according to Badi'uzzaman Said Nursi. The second is Nursi's view of women. And the third is how to respond to the gender equality through thought of the concept of justice. Okay, let's talk about the concept of justice according to Badi'uzzaman Said Nursi. Justice is given shape. According to Nursi, justice is putting everything in its proper place. Justice is not equal, but harmonious and complementary. Divine justice is the highest justice as a manifestation of Asma'ul Husna al-Adl, or we call it al-Adalah al-Ilahiyah. Justice as Sunnatullah is reflected in the creation and order of the universe, which is full of wisdom, the balance of existence, form, role, and placement in the place that suits its potential and needs. In his book, Badi'uzzaman Said Nursi in Al-Kalima said that justice is given shape and put in their appropriate place in accordance with the precise equilibrium and in appropriate measure, show that all matters are done in accordance with infinite justice and balance. Similarly, the fact that all things are given the right things in accordance with their disposition, that they receive all the necessities of their being and all the requirements of life in the most fitting form. Okay, let's step to the Nursi's view of woman. In the Risalah Nur, Nursi paid attention to women. He wrote his advice for women in the book Murshid al-Akhwa al-Akhirah. In his book, Al-Lama'at, Nursi said, women are manifestation of Risalah Nur. Why? Since one of the most basic principles of the Risalah Nur is compassion, and women are champion of compassion. They are by nature more closely connected with the Risalah Nur than others. Okay, and women in Risalah Nur are described with extraordinary ability and potential to strengthen the welfare of the Ummah through their nature or fitrah. Women are teachers of the Ummah. Why? Because the man's first master and most influential teacher is his mother. The role of woman in the domestic realm as a mother is not a form of marginalization, because this role has big influence on the future of her children and human civilization in general. Nursi himself considered his mother to be his greatest teacher, from whom his characteristics and ideas developed. So, how does Nursi apply the concept of justice in seeing women and men? Yeah. The existence of every being in this world, including women and men, is harmonious and complementary. In his book, Al-Kalimah, Badi'uzzaman Said Nursi said that maintaining justice means maintaining a balance, not destroying, and maintaining a mutually beneficial proportion according to the nature and Sharia of God. And the misconception about the meaning of justice indicate misconception about the meaning of God justice or adalah ilahiyah. Whereas in Al-Kalimah, Nursi mentioned that his wisdom, Allah's wisdom, and justice are absolute and perfect. All that stem from him must be wise and just too. So, according to Nursi, to put women and men in the proper place based on their nature or fitrah and abilities requires knowledge of nature or fitrah. Thus, humans will never get absolute knowledge about fitrah unless it is based on knowledge of God and its essence, as well as its basis in belief in God. Okay, let's step to the critical review of Badi'uzzaman Said Nursi's perspective on gender equality. Okay, the placement of men in the public sphere and women in the domestic sphere has extraordinary wisdom. However, women's domestic roles are often misunderstood. Even though this role is not a form of discrimination, marginalization, or even patriarchy. Nursi said, Allah crowned human as a caliph fil ard, or khalifatu fil ard. God gave the mandate as well as provided him with the various capacities and abilities according to his natural potential. In his book, Staff of Moses, Nursi said that justice is enforced with its measure, nothing superior to which the human mind conceive it. The divine name preserved their mutual proportion, and it has brought together the dominical and divine act with the perfect balance. Nursi's view, which is Harfi Tauhidi on gender justice, stems from the depth of his understanding of the divine name Al-Adl in understanding the order, wisdom, beauty, and justice of a creation. Passion that adapts the reasoning of the Quran can be a logical match for Western secular argument. Understand justice and woman from the Islamic paradigm. Woman needs a high level of accuracy to understand justice. In Islam, there's no difference between men and women in the sight of Allah other than piety or taqwa. Nursi emphasized, whoever still have the eyes of the heart, he will understand with certainty that there is no wisdom more perfect than the wisdom of Allah, and there is no justice greater than his justice. They demand equality, even though the struggle for equality, which is certainly not in accordance with the nature of woman, will bring injustice to her. For example, women think that they are marginalized by the role of mother, such as pregnancy, breastfeeding, even though this open up wider opportunities for entering heaven. Women are indeed limited in their social activities in order to maintain their honor. But Allah provides a wider field of reward in his domestic sphere. Therefore, Nursi says, their present unfortunate condition result from 4 causes. The first is failure to observe the Sharia. It means it is the ignorance of women in understanding the Sharia that makes women feel discriminated against. The second is arbitrary and erroneous interpretation of it. The third is bigotry on the part of certain ignorant externalist scholars. And fourth is abounding through ill fortune and bad choice, the virtues of Europe, which are difficult to acquire, and imitating like parrots or children the sins and evil of civilization. Okay, and these four things finally gave rise to the gender equality movement. As a response, Nursi dedicated the 24th flash to philosophically explain the justice side of God regarding issues that are often contested by gender equality, such as hijab, inheritance, polygamy, and the domestic role of women. The first, regarding the hijab, the Quranic law regarding hijab is in line with the nature of woman, because the hijab by nature is intended to protect women from humiliation. Men's view are not mahram and maintain the other. On the other hand, feminists regard the hijab comments as mere culture and oppression that limits their space. It's written in Flash or Al-Lama'at, page 255. So the next example is about inheritance. In Al-Kalimah, Nursi emphasized that the division of 2 and 1 is a justice. Although a woman takes half of her father's inheritance, her husband makes up for it. But if a man gets 2 parts from his father, he will give 1 part to take care of the woman he marries, so that she becomes equal to his sister. So the next issue is polygamy. Nursi is in 25th word explained that the rules of polygamy in Islam are more civilized than the previous culture law or pagan Islam. Even though in some places there are evil, the Sharia is still lighter. The lightest evil is relative justice. This is because absolute justice cannot be realized in all existing conditions. Polygamy is not meant as law for having 1 to 4 wives, but reduction from 8 wives to 4. Okay. Nursi forbid women from imitating Europeans because their vices and invalid thought. The path of misguidance will burden his weak back with various burden of suffering. As a result of knowing God his God, not believing holistically in the Supreme Being, he always feels in poverty and powerlessness. From the perspective of gender equality, anything that in Islam is a burden or taklif and an obligation for man is considered a form of male domination. On the other hand, anything that is a relief or rukhsah for women is considered to be subordinated and discriminated against. The existence of nature in every creature is a manifestation of God's justice or adalah ilahiyah. When women demand more from their nature, in fact, they have wronged themselves because Allah has its own way of glorifying his servant. Again, Nursi offers 2 simple solutions to woman's problem. First, follow the piety of the old woman. Why? Because elder woman seem obedient in carrying out his Sharia without any doubts. And the second is making the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the ultimate goal of a Muslim life. Okay. So, in his book, Al-Kalimah, Nursi said, the absolute reality of God cannot be understood with the limited view of man. The finite human mind can only see one or two sides of universal reality. It's preoccupied with them and trapped in them. They upset balance and destroying proportion and harmony. And the conclusion, in Nursi's perspective, gender equality is not in line with Nursi's perspective. Because in Nursi's perspective, the relationship that is more appropriate to describe the relationship between man and woman is justice or gender harmony. It's not equal. Because justice, according to him, is to put everything in its right place or in its proper place. Because it refers to divine justice or adalah ilahiyah. Okay, maybe that's for me. Thanks for your kind attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thanks for Ustaz Salah Neti and the MAG candidates for the impressive as well as comprehensive presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, we come to the last of the presentation in this evening. Please welcome Dr. Candidate Ustaz Ishamuddin M. Ud with a study entitled Deep Ecology, Vision in Rasail Nur and its relevance to sustainable development. 35 minutes is yours.
Sa'adata Profesor Dr. Hamid Zarkasi, Rais Jamiat Dar Salam Gontor, Fadilata Dr. Sayyid Yuja, Mudir Muassasah Istanbul Lithaqafati wal Ulum, Al-Muhtaramun, Masyayikh Nur, wa Tullabun Nur fi Anha'il Alam, Al-Mukarram, Al-Ustad Syamsul Hadi Untung Amid, Kulliyati Usuluddin, والسادة المتحدثون والمشاركون في هذا المؤتمر لأستاذنا بديع زمان سعيد نرسي وأيضا الإخوة الطلبة في الحرم سمان حرم منتقان حرم كديري وخريج معهد السلام غنطر في أنحاء العالم أحييكم تحية إسلامية أحلى تحية من معهد دار السلام غنطر إندونيسي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah faidul anwar wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sayyidil abrar wa ala alihi wa ashabihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin al-akhyar amma ba'd fa innahu lamin dawa'i sururi qalbi أن أتوجه بين يديكم جميعا في هذا المؤتمر في هذا يوم الفرح والتكريم يعني في المؤتمر عن بديع زمان سعيد نرسي الذي أخذه الزاوية لدراسة سعيد نرسي في جامعة دار السلام غنطر وقسم العقيدة والفلسفة بكلية أصول الدين بالتعاون مع مؤسسة اسطنبول للثقافة والعلوم. أيها إخوتي الأعزاء والأوفياء، في هذه اللحظات سنحاول الموضوع يهم العالم وسنتقص في بيننا موضوعا ذوي الأهمية في الوجود كله ألا وهو القضايا البيئة والمستدامة يعني environment and sustainable. ولكن أن ننظر إليها بمنظور عقائدية علمية منهجية تأصيلية وبشكل خاص سنتكلم عن قضية قيم البيئة أو environmental value وقضايا المستدامة. وفي هذه الفرصة سنبدأ من المشكلة. أيها الإخوة، فقد أصبحت قضية البيئة ومشكلة البيئة وتلوث البيئة هم المثقفين والمفكرين في العالم كله، بل أصبحت هذا هم الجماهير الغفيرة من الناس، فأصبحت قضية مركزية وعالمية بل وجودية بالنسبة إلى العالم. لماذا؟ لأن فساد البيئة واستنزاف موارد يهدد الجميع، فيجتهدون في حل تلك المشكلة بشتى النظريات، ولكن الثقافون في ذلك تفرقون إلى الفريقين. كان الفريق الأول يذهب إلى أن أزمة البيئة ليست إلا مشكلة فنية أمريكية البتة، وفي حين ذهب الفريق الآخر إلى أن معالجة المشكلة تبدأ من منطلق النظري والتصوري، وبين الموقفين يتباين موقف آخر يحاول أن يبتعد بقدر الإمكان عن أي مذهب سابق ويبدأ من الجانب العقدي الإيماني الذي هو دعم رسائل النور، وهو تظهر المشكلة من أين نبدأ. وأما المشكلة الثانية هي مشكلة قيم البيئة، فهي قضية ذات الأهمية لأنها تتعلق بأخلاقية البيئة، بالتصرفات البيئية. هل القيم بذاتها أم بغيرها؟ بذاتها يسمى intrinsic value أو بغيرها أو القيمة الوسيطية أو aesthetic value. وقد ظهر الخلاف بين مذهبي البيئة العميقة أو deep ecology ومذهب الضحلة أو shallow ecology، حتى لا يمكن إمكان الجمع بينهما. والسؤال: ما حقيقة هذه القيم للبيئة؟ وكيف موقف رسائل النور من هذا الاختلاف؟ والقضية الثالثة يعني هي لوازم وتوابع قضية البيئة، وهي قضية المستدامة أو sustainable development، أو كان قضية البيئة جزءا لا يتجزأ من قضية المستدامة، وهي المصطلح أو المشروع المتداولة الآن في العشر سنوات بشكل كبير في مختلف الدول، ونتج عن طريق التوافق بين الدولة تحت الأمم المتحدة. وينبغي علينا أن ننظر بمنظور إسلامي. ثم كيف أهمية مفهوم قيم البيئة في هذا البرنامج التنمية المستدامة؟ أيها الإخوة الكرام، ذكر أستاذنا الفاضل وإذ الزمان سيد نورسي يعني صريحا ماذا أصل وماذا عين المشكلة. قال صريحا أن أصل التلوث وعينها ومنبع المشكلة البشرية هي الفلسفة المادية الوضعية الطبيعية، حيث قال: الفلسفة المادية طاعون معنوي، حيث سببت في سريان هم مهلكة في البشرية وأرادها الغضب الإلهي. ولبطون هذه الفلسفة أساس ومبدأ على مستوى النظري والعقدي. وأما مستوى العقدي فهي ضمنت الكفر المطلق وقطع الانتساب إلى الخالق وإنكار واجب الوجود وإنكار الحشر وغيرها من الأحكام الثوابت. وبنيت هذا البعد العقدي الفاسد على منطق الأسباب والطبيعة والتشكل النفسي كما ذكر سيد يوسف في المقدمة. وقد نقده سيد رسائل نور في منطق هذا النظرية لأن فيها المحالة غير المحدودة ونهاية الصعوبة بدرجة الامتناع وعدم المعقولية بدرجة المحالية، لأنها تلازم إلى منح صفة الألوهية إلى كل الموجودات من الذرات إلى المجرات من الخلايا إلى بيوما. وبمستوى النظري فلها نوع النظر الموجودات وطائف البيئة والإنسان بعين الاسم والنظر الاسمي. وقال: أما نظر الفلسفة الميتة فهي تنظر على الأغلب بالنظر الاسمي إلى الموجودات، قصدي اسمي تدل على معنى في نفسه. ومن طبيعة النظر الاسمي أنه يغير ماهية الموجودات كما في النية يغير الأحوال. من أنها تجليات الأسماء والصفات إلى وهم الوضعية المادية الطبيعية ويرى المحال ممكنا فليصل إلى حقيقة الكون والبيئة على ما هو به. وفي نفس الوقت أصبح الكفر المطلق نموذج الفكر العلم أو paradigm of science والإيكولوجية والعلوم الإيكولوجية، فيعجز الطبيعيون البيئيون الغربيون في قراءة موجودة البيئة حيث غرقوا في ذات نقوشها الاسمي لا إلى الحقيقة ومعناها الحرفي، فيعتبرونها عدم المعنى والمغزى ويتهمونها بالتفاهة والعبثية وتخيلونها جامدة دون حياة، فظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. وأيها الإخوة الكرام، ينهى الكلام الدقيق لأستاذنا الفاضل عن شهادة العدو، وهو قال أن الفضل ما شهده الأعداء. فشهد وأكد علماء البيئة المعاصرة الغربية وفلاسفتهم بعد 50 عاما بيان الأستاذ النرسي أن خطير الفلسفة المادية على العالم والبيئة والمجتمع الحضري، حيث ننظر إلى شهادة فريتشوف كابرا، وهو ينبه العالم كله على أن الرؤية الغربية الكونية هي الرؤية التقليدية المهملة المهجورة أو ذات والفيو، ولا تستطيع حل شتى المشكلات والمعضلات المتنوعة المتفاوتة، بل هي علة جوهرية للإشكالات البيئية. وأيضا وحقق العالم في علم النفس يعني R.D. Laing أن الفلسفة المادية تميت الأرض dead world لأنها تزيل الطف الإنسانية أمثال الروح والنفس والقلب ونحوها، وهو يفسد البيئة في البعد النظري قبل أن يفسدها واقعيا تطبيقيا. فكيف إذا معالجة من هذه المشكلة؟ أيها الإخوة الأعزاء، ومن المعلوم من القواعد المقررة المنطقية أن التصرفات أيا كانت أثرا من التصورات، والتصرفات البيئية من أثر التصورات عقديا ونظريا. وإذا كانت مشكلة البيئية في مستوى العقدي والنظري كما تقدم ذكره، فالمعالجة إذن تأتي من هاتين المستويين، والأول بالثورة الإيمانية، وهو عند أستاذ سعيد نرسي بإنقاذ الإيمان من الإيمان التقليدي إلى الإيمان التحقيقي، وهي بمشاهدة الثغراء والختم الإلهي المضروب الفردي والنوعي وجميع الموجودات والإحياء والحياة والجزء والكلي من طوائف البيئة. وعلى المنطق يعني مسمى المعراج القرآني أو التفكر الإيماني. والثاني هو بتغيير وجهة النظر أو shifting paradigm من النظر القديم التقليدي السطحي إلى وجهة النظر الجديدة التحقيقية العميقة، وسماه سادنا بالنظر الحرفي. يعني اصطلاح الحرفي يعني مصطلح اللغوية، هو أحيانا كثير أستاذ يحول مصطلح اللغوية إلى مصطلح العقائدية. فالعالم والبيئة يعني هو حرف، مثلا حرف الجر، العالم في، العالم على، العالم إلى، وليس له معنى إلا بإسناد إلى شيء آخر، يعني وهو النظر إلى البيئة وعناصرها بل موجودات ليس لنفسها وذاتها بل للمعنى الآخر من الجانب المعنوي وفي دقة الملاحظة والتفكر. فيغير هذا النظر ماهية البيئة من أنها المجرد المادي الوضعي إلى كونها التجلي الإلهي. ثم وبعد ملاحظة صفحات رسائل النور وخاصة في العلاقة بين التوحيد التحقيقي والنظر الحرفي والنصوص تتعلق بالبيئة، فيمكن تعرف رؤية البيئة العميقة الجديدة المفاضة من رسائل النور، وهي يعني ما يستقر في يقينية الإنسان من صورة وجود البيئة تتلمع وتتجلى له من التوحيد التحقيقي والنظر الحرفي، فتحدد له حقيقة البيئة من حيث أصولها ومبادئها وأسسها ومفهومها، وتستمد موقع التوجيه الفاعل مع البيئة تعاملا إيجابيا. أيها الإخوة، من الأهمية يعني هنا بيان وإثبات أن نوع النظر يؤثر في إبراز معنى القيمة البيئية، والنظر إلى القيمة يلازم المعاملة معها. وللأستاذ الفاضل مصطلحات كثيرة لكلمة القيم البيئية، منها الأهمية والقيمة والغاية والأهداف والمعنى والمعاني وغيرها. ثم قد تكلمنا في المقدمة أن هناك تناقض بين النظريين، بين الديب ايكولوجي يعني البيئة العميقة وبين الشالو ايكولوجي أو البيئة الضحلة في مفهوم قيمة بيئة. وأما القيمة الأولى يعني القيمة البيئية بذاتها أو intrinsic value، يعني هي القيمة التي كانت ملحومة في ذات البيئة من أن لها الغاية والأهداف والوظيفة الحياتية بنفسها ومن نفسها، فليمكن للآخر قبضها ونزعها وبيعها. ثم الثانية يعني القيمة الثانية يعني قيمة الوسائطية أو instrumental value، يعني القيمة المحدثة لطوائف البيئة باعتبار وجود الحاجة المادية في هذه الإنسان، فالمعيار ليس بذاتها ولذاتها بل الآخر ومن الآخر، وإنما الاعتبار والمعيار منافع مادية وليس منافع روحية. وهذا يعني تناقض النظرية. ثم كيف موقف رسائل نور من هذه الاختلاف؟ يعني كما دققنا ولاحظنا من نصوص رسائل نور أن الأستاذ يعني دقيق الكلام بهذا المعنى، وهو يبين مفهوم قيمة البيئة قبل ظهور وانتشار هذا المفهوم. يعني هو يقول نعم أن لوجود كل شيء غايات ولحياتي أهداف ونتائج، فهي ليست بمنحصرة كما يتوهم أهل الضلالة على الغايات والمقاصد التي تتوجه إلى الدنيا، يعني هو instrumental value، أو التي تنحصر في الموجود نفسه أو intrinsic value، حتى يمكن يتسلسل إليها العبث وعدم القصد، بل إن غاية وجود كل شيء ومقاصد حياته ثلاثة أقسام. يعني الأول تتوجه إلى ذات ومواصل الإنسان، والثاني متوجه إلى ذوي الشعور، والثاني متوجه إلى الصانع. ويعني كان أستاذ من سيدنا يجمع بين الاختلاف، يعني في الحقيقة المختلف ليس جوهريا، يعني هو طبقات مختلف، يعني الجمع بين هذه القيم. ثم يعني من أمثال القيمة المعنوية لأستاذ يعني كما قال في بيان مفهوم البيئة على المنظور الحرفي التحقيقي، وهو يقول يعني أن الكون برمته والبيئة جزء منها كتاب صمداني ينطوي على معاني عميقة غزيرة، وأن الموجودات بأسرها مجموعة مكاتب سبحانية في منتهى الإعجاز، وأن المخلوقات بجميع طوائفها جنود ربانية في غاية الانتظام والهيبة، وأن المصنوعات بجميع قبائلها ابتداء من الميكروب والنمل والكركوت والنسر إلى الكوكب السيارة موظفات دؤوبات مأمورات جادة تأمر بأمر السلطان الأزلي. قال تعالى وإن شيء إلا يسبح بحمده. ولقوة العبارة عين كثير أستاذ يستخدم أو ماذا يحول يعني مصطلح اللغوية إلى مصطلح العقائدة، وهو يشرح يعني قيمة البيئة، وهو يقول ومع أجمل عبارته إن الكائنات في غاية البلاغة قد أنشأها وأنشدها صانعها فصيحة بليغة، فكل صورة وكل نوع منها بالنظام المندمج فيه معجزة من معجزات القدرة. ثم نأتي إلى يعني القيم أسمى قيم. أظن هذا يعني صعب في فهم، ولكن سوف نحاول مدى تدريجيا. يعني في القيمة التي تتوجه إلى الصانع. رأينا أن هذه القيمة التي تتوجه إلى الصانع والأسماء الحسنى عند أستاذ سيد نرسي في رسائل النور هي أمر جديد في مباحث علم البيئة ورعايتها شرقيا وغربيا. فلا يمكن البيئي الغربي الضحلي وكذلك البيئي العميقي أن يصلوا إلى هذه القيمة لنموذج فكرتهم الخالي من الجانب الإلهي. يعني وهو يبدأ في مقصد خلق العالم، وهو ماذا يقول عن حديث القدسي يعني كنت كنزا مخفيا فخلقت الخلق ليعرفوني. والإمام النرسي يتفق مع جماهير الصوفية ونقل مذهبهم في هذا المجال، وقال في معنى هذا أي فخلقت الخلق ليكون مرآة أشاهد فيها جمالي. ثم يفصل أستاذ النرسي كون البيئة مرايا التجليات، وهي مظهر الفعالية الربانية والخلاقية الإلهية والشؤون الإلهية المقدسة التي تورث الأحوال الإلهية المقدسة التي صعب تعبيرها بلغة البشر المحدود. ويمكن الإشارة تلك الشؤون التي يعجز التعبير عنها ولم يؤذن له بالإفصاح، بل ربما يشير إليها بأسماء الرضا المقدس والافتخار المقدس واللذة المقدس. هذا هو أسمى قيمة إلى بدء الزمن سيد نرسي. ثم أيها الطلاب، وأيضا بعد الاستقراء لنصوص رسائل النور يستنبط الباحث أن أستاذ النرسي أبدع مفهوم القيمة الجديدة الأخرى من خلال نظرية توحيد التحقيق والمعنى الحرفي، ويمكن تسميتها ببقاء القيم المعنوي مع فناء القيم الذاتي الصوري. وكما لاحظنا أن العبارة التي استخدمها النرسي في غاية الصعوبة، إذا هي سنحات أي ملهومة، وهو يكتب كما جاءت إليه. والبيان لتلك النظرية أن صورة مادة عناصر البيئة والمخلوقات فردا وجماعة تفنى وتتغير دائما بالمعبرة تبدل تعينات الاعتبارية، ولكن بقيت قيمتها المعنوية بترك الوجود الأخرى كثيرة جدا التي لا تقصر في هذا المحيط الحيوي، ولكن بقيت قيمتها المعنوية بترك الوجود إلى العالم السرمدي. يعني بقي استحفاظ المعاني الجميلة والهويات المثالية الغيبية والمنسوج اللوحية، ونشر الثمرات الأخروية والمناظر السرمدية، وإعلان التسبيحات الربانية وإظهار المقتضيات الأسماعية وظهور السبحانية والمشاهد العلمية. أظن نحن نحتاج إلى وقت آخر لبيان هذه البقاء المعنوي. ثم نستمر إلى قضية مهمة أخرى، يعني قضية قيم النظافة. أيها الباحث رحمكم الله، ومن مميزات الرؤية العميقة عند الأستاذ النرسي لقيم البيئة والكون هو نقاء البيئة ونظافتها وطهرها وصفاؤها وجمالها بالأصالة. وهذه القيم تجري بوجود قانون التنظيف المستمر في الأرجاء الكون والبيئة جزءا وكليا من أصغر العناصر إلى الفضاء الأكبر، والمعروف في فن البيئة بتجدد التنظيف أو ريكلاينينج. ولكن رأى النرسي بمنظور الحرفي أن ذلك القانون ليس إلا تجليات اسم القدوس في العالم كله. ويمكن تعريف هذه النظرية بقولنا مراقبة الخالق القدوس بالتنظيف في الكون والبيئة وتنسيقه وتزيينه على الدوام المستمر بكل عناية وإتقان حتى لا يرى فيه أثر من القذورات والنفايات، محافظة لاستدامة حياة الطائف البيئة for sustainable life. وهذا الدستور لا كما يراه أصحاب العميقة مثل فوترا وأن ذلك الفن من ذاك الأرض وحياة الأرض المعروف بنظرية جايا، اسم لإله اليونان وتحت القانون الطبيعية، ولكن هو تجليات أسماء الحسنى. وقد كتبت هذه النظرية في مجلة العلمية وأوصي بقراءة تلك المجلة. ثم السؤال يعني كيف كان الخالق القدوس يحافظ هذا القيام ونظافتها واستدامتها ويراعي استدامة حياة المخلوقات. كيف هو يراعي sustainable of life. وأجاب النرسي إن الحكيم تعالى يدير نقاء الكون ويراعيها ويحميها من بدء تكوينها وسيرورتها طوال مليارات سنين بالقوانين الخاصة. سماها الأستاذ بالشريعة الفطرية أو الأوامر التكوينية التي هي التجلي الأعظم لصفات القدرة والإرادة، وسماه الطبيعيون بالطبيعة الذي نقله الأستاذ النرسي. يعني ومن هذه الشريعة يحامي ويحافظ الإله مستدامة العالم الكلي. ثم نأتي إلى التطبيق. هذا الصور كيف تطبيق القانون النظام والقوانين الشرعية في مجال الفردي والمجتمعي. يعني ليس هناك مادة غير نافعة أو زيرو وعدمية نفاية وإعادة تصنيع المواد التفاح بعد استخدامها أو reclining. ثم نأتي إلى قضية آخر المهمة. أظن هذه القضية من الكلمة المفتاحية الرئيسية والجوهرية الأولية هو مفهوم الخلافة أو الاستخلاف وقياما العميقة عند الأستاذ النرسي. يعني حيث كانت هي المحور والقطب في مدار هذه القضية. الإنسان هو أشرف طوائف البيئة قيمة، ومعيار تلك الإشراف هو الخلافة وما يتولد منها. فلولا الخلافة لكانت قيمة الإنسان معدومة. فالإبرة في هذا المجال ليس صورة الإنسان المادي وحيواناته، ولكن الإبرة خلافته ومقتضياه. ومن لازم الخلافة هي السيادة الملكية على طوائف البيئة الأخرى. والسيادة بمفهوم الخلافة على الكون والبيئة هي سيادة انتداب وليست سيادة تملك وتسلط المطلق. فالإنسان قائم بما يقوم به الموكل يعني الله سبحانه وتعالى من الحفظ والرعاية والإحسان والإتقان. ولكن رغم كان وجود الإنسان في مركز العالم وهو سيد الموجودات، فهو كذلك في أدنى مراتب الوجود في حال الشعور بالخشوع والخضوع أمام رب العالمين. فالإنسان في مقام العبودية يجب عليه إطاعة الله حق طاعته وأن يكون خاضعها لإرادته تمام الخضوع. هذا هو مفهوم الخلافة. والخليفة يعني كما هو مشار إلى الآية الذي فسر أستاذ يعني كما قال إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. هو الجاعل بمعنى التخصيص لإمارة الأرض. ثم في الأرض البيان لأن البشر روح الأرض، متى خرجت البشر خرجت الأرض. وهذا يعني العلاقة العميقة بين الإنسان والأرض وبيئته. ثم نستمر إلى قضية مهمة أخرى يعني قضية عالمية يعني قضية المستدامة، وأيضا سننظر إليها بمنظور رسائل النور. يعني وتحتوي تطبيق هذه النظرية على المستويات الثلاثة. يعني فيها الأعمال الإيجابية. فمن المستوى القيم هناك التفكر الإيماني، منها فهم الأقوال الصادرة من كل موجود، شهود حياة ذوي الحياة، شهود علم وبصيرة، ورؤية تسبيح المخلوقات، وفتح الكنوز المخفية وما إلى ذلك. وأما في مستوى دساتير الشريعة هي الطاعة والانقياد لشريعتين. أما الشريعة الكونية أو الفطرية بإقامة العدل والتنظيف وحفظ التوازن والقوانين الأخرى، أو أما الشريعة التكليفية المعروفة والعمل بمقتضى المقاصد الضرورية من حفظ الدين والنفس والمال والعقل والنسل. وأما في مستوى واجبة الاستخلاف والاستعمار منها تنظيم أنواع النعم وربطها بأوصل المصلحة لا إفساد، لأن الإفساد يؤرد البناء والعدم ويضيء الفوائد والحكم، ولا إسراف ينافي الحكمة ولزوم الاقتصاد، وأيضا إبادة وإمارة الأرض والتحضر وغيرها. وهذه يعني الثلاثة مفاضة من قول الأستاذ المفهوم العمل الإيجابي أو positive action. يعني وهو يقول أما إن وظيفتنا العمل الإيجابي البناء وليس السعي للعمل السلبي الهدام، ومهمتنا القيام بالخدمة الإيمانية ضمن نطاق الرضا الإلهية التي تثمر الحفاظ على الأمن والاستقرار الداخلي، يعني هو مرادف لكلمة الاستدامة. ثم وأيضا نتكلم عن البرنامج المستدامة للأمم المتحدة، يعني ونحن في الحقيقة مع حركات المستدامة من بين الدول العالم كله، وهو تفي باحتياجات الجيل الحاضر دون الإخلال باحتياجات المستقل. هذا تعريف للمستدامة، ولا يجوز أن يطغي على حقه أو يستنفذ مصادر رزقه، فإن هذه من ظلم. ونعترف بأهمية تلك البرنامج التي تدور حول قضايا الناس والكوكب والشركاء والسلام وما إلى ذلك، لكن هناك لازم التعليق والتحقيق الدقيق من مزايا رسائل النور. يعني ينبغي أن ترتبط هذه البرنامج بقضية الإيمان التحقيقي الإيجابي، لأن المقصود المستدامة في رسائل النور مستدامة في الدنيا والآخرة. وحاصل الكلام من هذه الجلسة، يعني إن رسائل النور فيها معالجة ناجعة للمعضلات البيئية تلائم متطلبات العصر وتطلعاته، فهي نابعة من التوحيد الحقيقي ومنه معينه وإليه مرجعه. فعلى المتخصصين البيئيين العالمين أن يهتموا بها وبذواتها الفكرية والإيمانية، فهي تفي بالغرب لمنهجها القويم الجامع بين العقل المضيء والقلب المنير. وفي الختام أريد أن أقول يعني كلمة عميقة لأستاذنا الفاضل الدكتور عمل جدل في هذه القضية، وهو يقول: ألف بديع الزمان سيد نرسي رسائل نور المكونة من سلاسل رسالة في فترات متنوعة ومختلفة، إجابة عن أسئلة فرضها الواقع الفكري الحضري المتحرك بالاستمرار، وهي أسئلة على تنوعها تتمحور حول فكرة مركزية مفادها إثبات الحقائق الإيمانية وتثبيتها. ونجح الأستاذ بفضل الله في الحصول على مبتغاه، فأسس لتوجه جديد قوام هو التفكر الإيماني والذكر الإيماني المرتجم في عمل إيجابي إيماني. واكتفي بهذا القدر. شكرا جزيلا على اهتمامكم، ونعتذر على جميع الأخطاء، ونسأل الله تعالى القدير يجعل عملنا خالصا لوجه الكريم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد والحمد لله رب العالمين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thanks for Ustadz Isamuddin for the impressive new findings of the presentation pertaining to deep ecology vis-a-vis shallow ecology. It is a cross-generation assignment to carry out the research for the development. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I really am sorry for the revision of the rundown this evening. I've said that the last presenter will be Dr. Isham, but it has new information for us that there be the last presenter again for this evening talk, namely Ustadz Ahmad Subesi from Dubai. Now, please welcome Ustadz Ahmad Subesi from Dubai. 25 minutes is yours. When the time is up, then I am sorry, I should provide the sign SIGN that the time is up. For example, by giving the word interruption, please, like that, when your time is up, because it is very injury time. Thanks. Please welcome Ustadz.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Before I start my speech, I would like to thank the University of Lgbtq Gontor, Indonesia, and Istanbul Foundation of Science and Culture for their kind invitation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you with his rahmah. Astagfirullah. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Brothers and sisters, in my presentation, I'd like to combine two subjects actually. I'd like to combine the subjects of ecology and gender from the perspective of Risale-i-Nur under the concept of Futra. So what is the meaning of Futra? The Arabic word Futra, often translated as original disposition, also means natural constitution or innate nature of human beings. So there is the holy maker, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is the makeup, nature, structure, and constitution of his creatures. It's a structure laden with purpose and meaning. It's not haphazard, it's not random. And the concept covers both ecology on a wider sense, meaning the earth and the stars and everything, as well as the human body. So Islam is seen as Deen al-Futra. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. فأقيم وجهك للدين حنيفا فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله ذلك الدين القيمة ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. The translation: so direct your face toward the religion uprightly as a Hanif, the Futra of Allah upon which He created all people. No change should be there in the creation of Allah. That is the correct religion, but most of the people do not know. This is from Surah Al-Rum, and Surah Al-Rum is quite interesting. There are a lot of relevant ayah verses in that surah, so I want to take your attention to that surah particularly. So in this verse, it's clearly stated that Islam is a religion in harmony with nature and human nature as well. Because it says the Futra of Allah upon which He has created you as human beings, right? So we have a Futra of our own. And of course, if there is a Futra, there is also the corruption of Futra, right? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. Corruption has appeared in the land and the sea for what mankind's hands have earned, that He may make them taste some part of that which they have done, that possibly they would return. So let's see what type of corruption are we talking about. So when we start speaking about ecology, environmentalism, ecologism, all those things, the discussion starts with our dominion on the earth, because we as human beings are endowed with that authority by Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, did you not see that God has committed in your service everything in the heavens and the earth, and He has showered you with His blessings, both apparent and hidden? Yet from the people are some who argue about God without knowledge, without guidance, without an enlightening book. That's a very interesting phrase here actually. So in the verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the dominion of human beings on earth, the fact that everything is under the servitude of men means all nature, the trees and the winds and everything you can think of is under the servitude of men. And this is not unconditional. This is an amana. This is an amana which is something which is entrusted to human beings. It is not our own. The actual owner is Allah. The actual dominion belongs to Allah. It is entrusted to us as a test of our amana. Amana is a concept from the Quran. And it means it entails responsibility and obligation to be just, because this is not given to us for nothing. And interestingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions an enlightening book, because without the enlightenment of books and wisdom and a good understanding of Quran and Hadith, we cannot really appreciate the strength and importance of the amana and our responsibilities around that. So Ustaz Bediüzzaman often mentions the beautiful order as a way of understanding the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in Quran we see a lot of verses saying لَآيَاتٌ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. So these are signs for a people that reason. And Ustaz is one of those leading figures who has taught us how to reason about the creation of Allah. There is a very important expression here, which is dirty hands of man. So I want to read you that passage and I want to come to that point. Ustaz Nursi says, thus, everything from the cells of an animate body, the red and white corpuscles in the blood, the transformations of minute particles, and the mutual proportion and relaxation of the body's organs to the incomings and outgoings of the seas, the income and expenditure of springs under the earth, the birth and death of animals and plants, the destruction of autumn and the reconstruction of spring, the duties and motion of the elements and the stars, and the alternation, struggles, and clashes of death and life, light and darkness, and heat and cold are ordered and weighed with so sensitive a balance, so fine a measure, that the human mind can nowhere see any waste or futility. Just as human science and philosophy observe everywhere and demonstrate the most perfect order and beautiful symmetry, indeed, human science and philosophy are a manifestation and interpret of that order and symmetry. So again, in Ustaz's science, ilm, order and beauty in creation is a proof of the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is something here. Ustaz says in continuation of this passage, the cleanliness and purification proceeding from the name Most Holy Al-Quddus cleans and makes beautiful all the beings in the universe. So long as man's dirty hand does not interfere, there is no true uncleanness, cleanliness, or ugliness in anything. So this is very important. Man's dirty hands. What is this? So much of you might know the Silent Spring. This is one of the big works that started the environmental movement, actually. So it was written by Rachel Carson. She was a scientist. She was an honest and bold scientist. And she started making a research on the detrimental effects of DDT, a pesticide, on health and ecology. And by that time, all the scientists in unison were defending on behalf of DDT, its merits, its health, its importance for human progress and development. And you are seeing an advertisement. DDT is good for me, you know, on the right. They were making heavy advertisement on that. And when Rachel Carson released his publication, he was resisted a lot by the academic community because DDT was the marvel of modernity. It was very useful. It was very good. Of course, there was an industry behind it. There was an economy behind it. But she was fighting a single fight. But she turned out to be very right. And she turned out to foresee all the huge detrimental effects of this poison on human health. And this is still seen as one of the most important scientific works of the last 50 years, actually. There was a recent awarding of the Silent Spring as well. But this is a very good example of how the dirty hands of man interferes with the beauty and order in the nature. And this is actually what kicked off the environmental movement. So now I want to make a move here. So I hope my brothers and sisters will be able to follow me on that. This is a very key point of my presentation. After the environmental consciousness and awareness became mainstream, especially in the West, there was a parallel movement on regarding liberalism and gender. And you know the saying, my body, my decision, my body, my health, my body, my everything, right? So my body belongs to me and I can do whatever I want to do with it. But actually, when you think of cigarettes, the arguments and debates around cigarettes, there are very harsh rules and regulations around that. But you can think that, you know, cigarettes are a personal liberty. It is my body, my health. No one has the right to intervene. No one has the right to restrict us for our smoking cigarettes. But today, as people realize the detrimental effects of cigarette as well, they somehow intervene on a bodily level as well. They say things like, you know, on the cigarette packages, they put a lot of warnings. There's a heavy consciousness around the detrimental effects of cigarette, and it's seen as a legitimate effort, even within the liberal paradigm, to act against cigarettes. Okay, now I want to take another step. Where does the concept of gender fit into this? Okay, what is gender? Let's start with it. Sexologist John Money is often regarded as the first to introduce the term, and he made a distinction between biological sex and gender roles. And then with Simone de Beauvoir, there was another attempt like to popularize this concept, especially in the feminist theory. And before Money's work, it was uncommon to use the word gender to refer to anything but grammatical categories like he and she. But after Money and all the other feminist figureheads, this distinction became almost like a mainstream. Most contemporary social scientists, behavioral scientists and biologists, many legal systems and government bodies and intergovernmental agencies such as WHO make a distinction between gender and sex. So let's question this a bit. Detaching gender from its biological underpinnings. So claiming that there is a gender which is a pure social construct and it has no relationship with its biological underpinnings. Let's consider whether this claim is anything tenable, anything scientific, or anything philosophically justified. So if we, by the way, so you can ask, what if we accept gender as a social construct? It means gender roles are defined by culture. There is nothing like manness or womanness. There is nothing like masculinity or femininity. There is no foundation for that. Because you're lifting the foundation of biology, which is Futra in our own terminology, and you're talking about something purely cultural. So this opens the way to questioning gender roles, right? So people will start saying, we impose stereotypes to our children by giving guns to boys and by giving babies to ladies, the kids, daughters, so that they raise up as women and men. Otherwise, if we impose a gender neutral training, gender neutral education, they will select their own gender. And of course, my brothers and sisters, you must have realized that this opens the way to another big problem, which is the LGBTQ movement. I think they consumed all the alphabet, all the letters in the alphabet. I don't know how long it will take in the next 10 years to just pronounce this. But the core assumption of LGBT movement is this gender as a social construct concept. When you accept gender as a detached concept without its ties with biology, then you can talk about other sexes, other genders like gays and so on and so forth. And of course, this detachment also opens up another threat for these people, the discourse of equality. Why do we culturally or intuitively or traditionally think that human and men and women have different roles, have different functions, or have different qualities, or at least have a certain level of differentiation in certain aspects of life? So they started challenging this because in their idea, this is purely based on the gender stereotypes. The fact that we are giving guns to our boys or like cars to our boys and dolls, baby dolls to our kids or daughters. This is their mentality. And of course, especially after the Second World War, this type of movement is also combined with economy, concerns around economy, participation of women to economy, and the image of powerful woman. When we think about the image of powerful woman, of course there are powerful women on this earth. Of course, power is part of woman existence as well. But why do we elevate that concept so much? Why do we put it as a really central concept? Why we sublimate power? Why we aggrandize power? Why is it that important? Why not compassion, for example? Why powerful became so central to our understanding of life and worldviews? And why especially women should be powerful? And what does it entail? For example, in Norway, I don't know whether you know it or not, but it is mandatory for women to go to military service. So if women are equal and powerful, of course, they should be able to fight as well, right? But how reasonable and meaningful is it to build an order out of exceptions? We know that many women would not prefer going to military service, but because of this discourse, because of this imposition, now every woman has to go to a military service. The reason why I put here Nusayba bint Ka'b radiallahu anha is we know that within Sahaba, at least there was one or two ladies who were tough fighters. They fought and they protected Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and actually Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and praised them for their efforts. But these are obviously exceptions, and in those exceptions we don't see other corollaries of the image of powerful woman. Yes, Nusaybe bint Qab radiallahu anha was a powerful woman in that sense, but he was respectful, was hijabi, he was respectful for her husband. I mean, it was not like a package. I'm powerful and equal, and I challenge this and I challenge that. It was not a matter of ego. It was a matter of exceptional personal quality that she had, but she was not a representative of the whole women, because in general, we know that by the Futra of women, as indicated by Nursi, women are more about compassion than powerfulness, authority, and concepts around that. So, of course, when you open that door as making power as the core image around women, then of course you start associating traditional maternal role as a weakness, because it takes you away from all these understanding of power, like economic power, military power, things like that. And then you start questioning the family roles and hierarchies, obviously, as a corollary to that.
Interruption, please, Ustad.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Your time will be 5 minutes more, because a call of
Sure.
prayer, in
Sure.
Indonesia.
Yes, yes, sure. Yeah. So now I suggest a strategy for my sisters and brothers around all these concepts and all these discourse around gender roles and so on and so forth. So as we discussed, the core assumption of feminists and gender advocates, like in LGBTQ, all these stuff, as well as ecologists, in a way, is that gender is not founded on biological differences. But actually, as a cognitive scientist myself, I have done a big research on that. And I suggest you to read this book, Sex Differences in Cognitive Abilities. Diane F. Halpern wrote a whole book, which became very importantly discussed in the academic community. She lists the differences of men and women in terms of their brain anatomy, brain structure, physiology, hormonology. And she says, look, the differences are so obvious that we cannot simply say the gender is a purely social contract. It's founded on biology. We have a futra. Actually, she doesn't know the word of futra, but she says we have a futra, and that futra imposes the gender roles in a way, or at least is related to that. And she says, why? There was too much data pointing to the biological basis of sex-based cognitive differences to ignore, Harpern says. For one thing, the animal research findings resonated with sex-based differences ascribed to people. These findings continue to accrue. In a study of 34 rhesus monkeys, for example, males strongly preferred toys with wheels over plush toys, whereas females found plush toys likable. It would be tough to argue that the monkeys' parents bought them sex-type tools, and that simian society encourages male offspring to play with more with trucks. She takes an example from monkeys. I mean, the biological sex is also there with monkeys and all the animals, right? As well as human beings. And she says, even in the case of monkeys, they have preferences in terms of which type of toys they select. Actually, I have done the same experiment with small kids in the kindergarten, and they had done selections. And it disproved the argument that our boys are selecting like cars and trucks and guns because of our imposition of that. No, there is a biology, there's a futra. And that makes a lot of sense. So the argument is this. There is a huge buzz around ecology, environmentalism, and there is advocates of that, and it became almost mainstream, right? So the question, the earth has an ecology that needs to be respected, and we also respect it as Muslims. How about our own bodies? How about our personal futra? Should we respect its ecology? Should we respect its biologically founded bodily nature? If not, why? Because you're saying, okay, we need to respect the ecology, the system, the constitution of the earth, but not the human body. Then it's inconsistency, right? If yes, why does the hegemonic public pseudo-scientific discourse goes against that? If I say, look, guys, don't talk about LGBT, XYZ Don't talk about everything is constructed socially. I know that I have a biology, I have my own ecology, and I have to find a way of living which respects that, which is exactly what Islam is all about. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. These are the verses again in Surah Al-Rum and Hujurat regarding males and females. Look at the beauty of these verses, brothers and sisters. Among his proofs that he created for you spouses from among yourselves in order to have tranquility and contentment with each other. And he placed in your hearts love and care towards your spouses. In this, there are sufficient proofs for people who think. And then, O people, we created you from a male and female, and we made you into nations and tribes that you may know one another. Surely the most honorable among you in the sight of God is the most righteous. God is knowledgeable, expert. So there's a strong message of complementarity, and there is also a strong message that we are equal before God in terms of our taqwa, not in terms of our biological makeup and related social and gender roles, right? So there's a difference between difference and equality. So now we can talk about gender equality, and we can also talk about gender equity and or justice. In the case of equity, we can address the differences as well, and the need to reach an equal outcome for the specific makeup of that human being, man for man, women for women, and the equal outcome is fulfillment, not abiding by some external standards imposed by Westerners, modernists, things like that. Nursi makes a very wise criticism of communist understanding of equality in the heydays of communism. He says, from my birth, I'm just summarizing because I don't have much time. He says, from my birth, I was always part of the common people, and I always witnessed injustices by bourgeoisie and all those things, and I was always against that. But he says, you cannot impose equality because however, he says, human nature and the underlying wisdom in humankind are contrary to the law of absolute equality. For to demonstrate his perfect power and wisdom, the all-wise creator produces many crops from a single thing. So he then talks about the diversity and the wisdom behind the diversity. And this is very critical. I want to read that. If someone who opens up a new way in the life of human society does not act in conformity with the natural laws in force in the universe, Futra, he cannot be successful in beneficial works and in progress. All his acts come to serve the interests of evil and destruction. Since actions must be in conformity with the natural laws, absolute equality can be applied only by changing human nature and removing the fundamental wisdom in the mankind's creation. That's why we love Nursi so much. That's why we respect him so much. He's saying the cost of imposing absolute equality is changing human nature. How do they change human nature? They're saying there is no human nature. It's a social construct. We are doing it as a cultural thing. You can be any sex. You can be a gay, man, woman. This is exactly what they are doing. This is the cost. And what is the actual cost? The actual cost is, ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, happiness, our fulfillment. I'll give you one example. We associate women with compassion, with softness, not harshness, not power, not authority, right? And Nursi says, since one of the fundamental principles of the Risale-i-Nur is compassion, and women are champions of compassion, they are by nature more closely connected with the Risale-i-Nur than others. So Ustaz is praising women for being champions of compassion. Now I'm going to give you one very famous experiment. So now imagine the softness associated with female body. This is their makeup, this is their futra, not power, authority, not being rigid, not being strong, things like that. Harry Harrow made an empirical work with primates. He took infant monkeys, baby monkeys, from their biological mothers and gave them two inanimate surrogate mothers. Two mothers, like a makeup, something which was done. And one has been done through wire and wood. It was solid. And the second one was covered in foam, rubber, soft terry cloth. It was soft, like, it was a soft type of, covering. And the other one was pure wood, very, very tough, and it was very rigid. Together, these studies produced groundbreaking empirical evidence for the primacy of the parent-child attachment relationship and the importance of maternal touch in infant development. To sum up, the softness of the material of one of the surrogate mothers reflected to the psychology of the baby ape in a very positive way. The other one became stressful, depressed, and all types of illnesses occurred in that poor monkey. The softness of women, the compassion related to women is needed for the whole humanity, for the health of the humanity, for the happiness and the fulfillment of humanity. If you impose this concept of strength and solidness and rigidity and authority to women, then it means, ladies and gentlemen, we will have sick generations to come, which is absolutely contrary to what Islam preaches us. To sum up, what should the Muslim agenda be in this subject? We should avoid corruption of the ecology of the earth as well as the body by having an awareness of amana and therefore being responsible and just. Second, establish an authentic Islamic culture of harmony with nature as well as human nature, being content with who we are. I'm a male, I'm happy with how I was created, and I want to act accordingly. I don't want to imitate anyone else. I don't want to equalize myself with someone else. And I want to be happy and fulfilled. Third, undo modern indoctrination. Which are they? Biologically unfounded gender. The idea of biologically unfounded gender should be undone. Genderless training. Now in the West, they try to doing genderless training. They're like acting all the kids as no gender. I mean, this is like a big problem coming to us as well. Feminist conception of equality is a big problem. It's not equality before God. It's equality in terms of everything, social roles, everything which should normally reflect our Futra, and reinstate the original Islamic wisdom regarding issues of Futra, including gender. This is from Ustad again. The sole means of saving women's happiness in the hereafter and their happiness in this world, as well as saving the elevated qualities in their nature from corruption, is the training given by the religion of Islam. There is no other means. So, in line with this, we should establish an equitable future for men and women and nature, give everything their due rights according to their fitrah within the legitimate boundaries of Islam. So we should, first of all, as scholars, we should have the himma, benevolence, the effort to explain these facts and truths from Ustads, Quran, Hadith, from our own wisdom, so that people understand that they're in the wrong path and understand what is really about Islam, Futra, and happiness. And this is the last slide. And this is from the sign of miraculousness from Nursi. He says, man's worth is proportionate to what he is. And what he is has value to the extent of his benevolence, himma. And his benevolence is valuable relatively to the importance of the aims to which he devotes himself. So I recommend my brothers and sisters to devote themselves as academicians to these type of subjects, to safeguard the wisdom of Islam and to safeguard our generations from the sick hands of humankind, and return it back to its beauty, diversity in an Islamic sense, and all the compassion coming out of that beautiful order, which is Islam. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thanks for Ustad Ahmed Subesi from Dubai. That's such a very impressive and outstanding presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, as a call of prayer has been heard at the sign of this blessed evening, as well as the sign of the end of all speech today, and hopefully that we can take good lesson perspective as well as a good initiation from what is delivered today. I ask for forgiveness for any words we have which are not supposed to be. And thank you for your kind attention. The time I give back to the master of ceremony. Hello kalam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
The next is photo sessions. And to all audiences, please stand up. And for the online participants, please turn on your camera. Once again, for the online participants, please turn on your camera.
Loh, udah selesai.
So once again, for the online participants, please turn on your camera. To all audiences, please have a seat. The next agenda is closing. The respected audiences, on behalf of the host and the committee, we would like to extend once again our deepest gratitude and appreciation to all of lecturers and audiences for support and attention. Our big apologize for any possible mistakes and inconveniences over the session. And for the next, let's close our agenda by reciting Alhamdulillah. And Kafaratul Majlis. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.